Good morning, and thank you everyone for coming. We are here this morning to say unequivocally that hate has no place in Connecticut. Sadly, national leaders have empowered hate, racism, and discrimination. And we have seen crimes motivated by bias against race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability, both here in our state and across our nation. Recently, a black woman working at a hotel was assaulted by a white couple who were yelling racial epithets. In March, there was a painting of a swastika at the UConn campus. In Portland, a poster on the main street with Nazi symbols. And of course, over the past few months, we continue to see disgusting acts of hate at the Amazon construction site with 8 nooses found over the last weeks. So today, we are taking a very important step forward to combat hate crimes in our state by announcing the Connecticut Hate Crimes Advisory Council. The Connecticut Hate Crimes Advisory Council, which as you see, reflects the beautiful diversity of our state, will be responsible for encouraging and coordinating programs that increase community awareness and the reporting of hate crimes. The council will also make recommendations for legislation concerning hate crimes, including recommendations on restitution for victims of those crimes, community service designed to remedy damage caused by these kinds of crimes, and additional alternative sentencing programs for first-time and juvenile offenders. State statutes name 9 officials to serve as ex officio members, and the governor is responsible for appointing the remainder of the membership and selecting 2 of them to serve as co-chairpersons. And we're so pleased to have with us members of the council today. And we are now going to hear from some of them. So first, I'd like to call on a former judge and now trial referee, Douglas Levine. Doug.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Doug Levine. I'm a judge trial referee in the state of Connecticut. First of all, I want to thank the governor for appointing me to this extremely important committee. I think that there's a lot of work to do in Connecticut, and I don't know a lot of the members of the committee, but I'm really excited about meeting them because everybody, I think, on this committee will have the common goal of making sure that anyone who is a member of any group, any cohort that feels vulnerable or that is being targeted is protected, and that the state and federal authorities who we'll probably be working with is looking out for them. I completely agree with the statement that there is no room or no place for any hate against any group in the state of Connecticut. Unfortunately, we all know there has been an uptick, and the rhetoric in the country and some of the conduct has been extremely concerning. So I'm very proud to be part of this. I consider it a great honor, and I look forward to working with all of the other members of the committee and hopefully making a small contribution in this regard. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Doug. Doug is council co-chair, and now I'd like to invite the other co-chair, Amy Lynn Meyerson, who is the president of the Connecticut Bar Association, to say a few words. Amy.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Beiswick. Good morning. My name is Amy Lynn Meyerson. I'm the president of the Connecticut Bar Association. Thank you, Governor Lamont, for assembling the Connecticut Hate Crimes Advisory Council and appointing our group of members who have a broad range of knowledge, skills, and diverse experiences. We are honored to have this opportunity to serve all residents of Connecticut by fostering and coordinating programs to increase community awareness and the reporting of hate crimes so that together we can find effective solutions to fight hate crimes. The Council also will make recommendations on how we can further protect and provide relief for victims of hate crimes and how we can remedy the damages that have been caused by these crimes. We look forward to working collaboratively with the Governor's Office, the Legislature, the Judicial Branch, and our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'd now like to invite Stephen Hernandez, who is the Executive Director of the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity, and also a council member. Stephen.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you, Madam Lieutenant Governor. It is only fitting that 100 years after Tulsa, while this very morning a pride flag raises over West Hartford, and our African American, Latino, Jewish children are targeted with hate, it is only fitting that we are here today declaring that the work is not done. This is a solemn charge, and I want to thank this legislature for its foresight and this governor for his steadfast leadership. In a time of so much uncertainty, there are at least two things of which we are sure: that hate is rooted in fear and ignorance, and that it can only be routed by the light of healing, education, and hope. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Stephen. And now I'd like to introduce our United States Senator, Richard Blumenthal.
Thanks, Lieutenant Governor Bicewicz. Thanks to the governor and our legislature for appointing this extraordinary council. You know, this is what America looks like. This is what America at its best looks like. This is what America needs to see and hear, because there has been a surge of hate crimes across this country. I was so proud to stand with Attorney General William Tong in the White House. I stood next to the president as he signed the No Hate Act. Actually, when I wrote this bill, it was called the Khalid Jabara Heather Heyer No Hate Act. It took years to pass it, but it was spurred by the surge of anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander hate crimes. And as the president signed it, my thought was about Connecticut and about the increase in hate crimes that we've seen here, directed not only against Asian Americans, but against Muslim Americans, against Jewish Americans, against Black Americans. Hate crimes against any group endangers everyone. Hate crimes against one person endangers all people, because we all are different and we all can be victims at one point or another. And as the president said, there should be no safe harbor for hate in the United States of America. This council is going to have a national role. It's going to advise not just Connecticut, but our nation. It's one of the only such councils in the United States. And I'm going to look to it as we move toward more legislation, more effective and aggressive legislation to counter and combat hate crimes in this country. And I want to say a particular thanks to our law enforcement who are here today, because in Connecticut, we know law enforcement stands strong against hate. It has no safe harbor for hate. And we know that this kind of unity, this kind of council, this kind of really passionate effort against hate can have a real effect. So thanks to everyone for making us so proud to be from Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And now I'd like to introduce our very fierce Attorney General, William Tong.
Thank you, Governor and Governor. Thank you for Governor Lamont and Lieutenant Governor Bicewicz for recognizing the urgency of this moment and for impaneling this important group of leaders from across our state that represent every community from one end of the state to the other. And thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for your leadership in not just passing the No Hate Act, but the COVID-19 anti-hate crimes law that the President signed a couple of weeks ago. I want to thank Steve Ginsburg of the ADL and Mike Bloom of the Jewish Federation. Where are they? They're back here. But I was a little distressed to see both of you this morning because we've been here before. And I'm sorry to say we're here again. In 2017, there was a spike in hate crimes across our state and our country, more than a 20% surge. We saw bomb threats called into mosques and synagogues, swastikas painted in Danbury at that time, and we got together when I was in the state legislature to pass some of the strongest anti-hate crimes laws in the country at that time. And now, here we are again. And in particular, we're seeing a surge in hate crimes against all people, but against Asian Americans, 150% surge across the country, more than 800% in New York City. And we all know, of course, of the horrific events in Atlanta, the murder of 6 Asian American women, the shooting death of Sikhs in Indianapolis, and the attacks captured on video of the grandmother in New York City kicked to the ground, the young man attacked on the subway in New York City, Yao Pan Ma, an out-of-work Chinese restaurant worker who was picking cans out of the trash, also in New York City. These are members of our family. These are our neighbors. And we have to fight for them. And it's really hard in this moment for all of us who feel like we have a target on our backs to articulate how hard it is when you feel like your mom or your dad or your grandparents literally are being hunted. And to tell them, you know, maybe you shouldn't go out to the supermarket, or maybe you should be careful not just about COVID and wearing your masks, but you should avoid places where you might be at risk and you might be attacked personally. That's why it's so important that this council get to work immediately on protecting all of us from hate crimes, and that's why it's so important that the state Senate and the House of Representatives, with the Senate bill, that the Senate passed Senate Bill 363, a new civil rights law here in Connecticut. And Section 1 of Senate Bill 363 empowers the Office of the Attorney General to enforce our state's hate crimes laws. And so with our state's law enforcement, Commissioner Ravella and Chief State's Attorney Richard Colangelo, we can work together as a coalition to enforce our state's hate crimes laws and protect the civil rights of all people here in Connecticut. This is so important right now to families across Connecticut. You referenced what has happened in cities and towns across our state. It also happened in Milford. It's happened in my home city in Stamford. And it's really important that people know here in Connecticut that the governor, lieutenant governor, the United States senator, our law enforcement, we will do everything we can to keep you safe and to protect you from hate crimes here in this state and in this country. And so thank you again, Governor, for your leadership.
Thank you, General. And since you mentioned a Senate bill, I also want to mention Senate Bill 122, which has been passed in the Senate and is in the House, that would establish a unit within the Connecticut State Police to investigate hate crimes. And the governor and I are strong supporters of that because it will give our state police more tools that they need to fight these crimes. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the person who has brought this very diverse and talented group of people to the Hate Crimes Council, our Governor, Ned Lamont.
All right, good morning, everybody. I was just thinking as I listened to those words, Dick and I were at Naugatuck yesterday, Memorial Day, and they're reading the names of those who gave up their lives for something much bigger than themselves, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Dozens of names of folks, Civil War, to end slavery, World War II, you know, the Holocaust, probably one of the greatest crimes of humanity in the history of the world. And just reminded that you have to fight every day. And that's what this commission is about. And Doug and Amy Lynn, thank you for taking the lead on this. Thanks to each and every one of you for standing up and reminding us what it means. We can point to these far-off events of hate crimes, but as Stephen mentioned, it was 100 years ago. Tulsa, the massacre. Hundreds of African Americans killed. And the perpetrators, their record was expunged. And it was expunged from history for an awful long time. And if you don't stand up every day to this type of hatred, it will continue. And it's not going to continue in Connecticut. It's not going to continue in America. This type of hatred is a different type of hatred, where we target people. This is not a random act of shooting. This is not a random act of violence. People are targeted because of their race, color, creed, sexual orientation, gender. And that is so contrary to everything we stand for here in Connecticut and everything we stand for as Americans. And I think William is going to be right there on the front line in terms of making sure these laws are enforced. And Ravella and Colangelo and our police, we know what these values are as we stand up every day, because that's what we do here in Connecticut. So I am really proud of each and every one of you making this effort on behalf of something bigger. It's about who we are as a people, who we are as a nation, who we are as the residents of the great state of Connecticut. We look at each and every person for who they are, and you're going to remind us of that every day. Thank you, everybody.
So now we're very happy that we have so many members of the media with us, and we're happy to take any questions, and we have this very distinguished panel of people to help us with questions.
When it comes to the reporting process, I mean, for Latinos and Asians, you have that language barrier when it comes to reporting. I mean, what's the best way in terms of reporting that you can ensure people that they'll get justice when they report?
So this is one of the provisions of the COVID-19 hate crimes law to enhance reporting and working with state and local law enforcement to overcome those language barrier issues, to get out in the community, encourage people to report. That's one of the biggest challenges in hate crimes law enforcement, is making sure that people in communities that are targeted, those communities tend not to have the strongest relationships with law enforcement. They may be immigrant communities. People may be concerned about, for example, their immigration status, even if they have no reason to be concerned about their immigration status. So I just did a PSA. I had to speak Chinese in this PSA, by the way, but I did it in Chinese and English with members of the state police and the FBI to get the word out there to people in the Asian American and Pacific Islander community that they should report. I think there's going to be more of that at the state level. So we're doing everything we can to enhance reporting, and one of the big parts of Senator Blumenthal's new law is to put resources into that so that we can fund enhanced reporting and data collection.
I might just mention, because that's really an important point. And as William said, the reason that this law is so important is it has real resources. It has money to fund outreach. Not only translators, because hate crimes affects a wide variety of people who speak different languages, but also English. and it will promote the training of law enforcement, the outreach to people, because very often stigma and shame and embarrassment prevent people from reporting as well. So the underreporting of hate crimes is a major obstacle. You can't prosecute something that isn't reported. And that's why this federal law with resources is so important in supporting this kind of counsel and local law enforcement, the local police departments and prosecutors who are really going to carry the ball here.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. You know, we have to continue the efforts that we started during the pandemic. What we found is that civic engagement is an action verb, and we have to do it in the languages of the people of the state of Connecticut. This governor and this government activated at the time of pandemic and reached into communities. That is the only way that we're going to hear from our people what they're experiencing and how it is that we can help each other.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Governor, was there any discussion of this hate crimes unit in your meeting with the legislature? Because it's going to obviously involve an appropriation. So maybe you could tell us your position on the two bills that have been referenced, that bill and
I don't think it came up specifically as part of those discussions, but we're going to do what it takes to make sure this commission has the resources they need to get the job done.
But do you have a position on the creation of a hate crimes unit within the state police?
Yeah, so that Senate Bill 122 is something that our administration and Commissioner Ravella have been working on with the legislature to strengthen what they're already doing and empower them. Commissioner, do you want to say a couple of words about that?
So good morning. Directly to your question, the state police will devote a sergeant and 4 troopers to this effort. It'll be coordinated through the field operations group, which will encompass also the major crime units based on the seriousness of the complaint. So we will incorporate that just into our regular budget.
So you don't really need legislation to do this?
Now, the legislation points out a few different things. It also talks about mandatory reporting, which is important to my group within a 2-week period. And this group will have the opportunity to talk about education because folks, let's just say it goes underreported or non-reported in certain areas, right? And then we can have a better view of not only the hate crimes, but the extremist movement around the state of Connecticut.
Governor, would you be able to give us your opinion on the budget negotiations? Speaker Ritter had a lot to say about it today, and he said that, you know, that they're not going to get flow play.
Maybe we should do the off topics in a minute and keep to this issue just for a few more minutes. I'll stick around though.
Well, then, Governor, can we ask you your opinion on the bill that, if you're not familiar with it, I can understand that. I'm not too familiar with the terms of it, sorry. The Attorney General's bill, the bill that the Attorney General just referenced.
Want to take that?
Yeah, Governor's been very supportive of my efforts
There you go.
to create a civil rights division in the Office of the Attorney General. The Governor and I have spoken about this at length, and he knows that we have to put every law enforcement resource possible on protecting people from hate crimes. And we've talked about how Section 1 of the bill empowers my office to do that, and I know that the Governor and I share that goal, and we want to be very aggressive on enforcing our state's hate crimes laws and protecting people in our community.
Have we gotten, and I didn't have a chance to check before this news conference, have we gotten any updated on the hate crime report?
In terms of data, I don't have the latest data today, but it's going up, and it's going up rapidly across the state and across the country.
I don't know if the ADL wants to weigh in on that. Sure. You can talk about what you're seeing.
Hi, I'm Steve Ginsburg. I'm the head of the Connecticut office of the Anti-Defamation League. And so we do track and report hate crimes and hate incidents, not across all kinds of hate crimes. Particularly, we have the most reliable data with respect to anti-Semitic hate crimes. We're seeing a very large recent spike in those in the past several weeks. We also got a lot of reports of anti-Asian incidents earlier in the year. And we work very closely with law enforcement, FBI, to track across the state. We've seen, our numbers have sort of tracked national trends on these issues. And one of the things that I think is important to know, and that this commission, that I'm really proud to be a part of, can work on, is we've got hate crimes and we have hate incidents. Sometimes hate spreads in the form of protected speech that still makes people feel uncomfortable and like they don't belong in our country. What can we do about that? What can we do when hate is spreading online and crossing the line to actually conduct where people are being stalked and harassed? There's another bill, Senate Bill 989, waiting for a vote in the House after passing the Senate, that will focus on online conduct of doxing, and those are targeted more often than not at people who are members of the same protected groups by their race, their religion, ethnicity. And so there's a lot we can do education-wise, and encouraging people to report, making them feel comfortable that their claims will be followed up on and treated with respect, and that they will be pursued appropriately is really important. But it's also important to let them know that sometimes things that they think are hate crimes might be protected speech, and how do we as a community stand up to help them? Through schools, through community groups, through faith leaders. How can we make people feel like when something might not even be a hate crime, it still is hate, and we can make them feel more like they belong here in Connecticut? So, thank you.
Would that help? What would that help you in terms of like police in general and law enforcement? I mean, what exactly will change when it comes to that before the bills and legislation?
What will change with respect to?
What will those conversations look like with like local law enforcement?
So I think that what we see here is a Connecticut State Police and many local law enforcement officers in the Attorney General's office saying, we want to hear from the community when they are targeted based on who they are. We want to understand it better, make sure that all of our districts and units are reporting, make sure that they know that we're here to protect them from people who are threatening or assaulting them. There's also that lower level, what we see in schools with kids, name calling, bullying. We have to treat sometimes those different perpetrators differently. Are we going to treat students the same way as a violent extremist? Probably not when it comes to legal punishment or consequences. But as a state, we can get the language in people's hands, get them understand what their rights are, and know that there's a larger community here of people from across the state willing to be there to help them, to stand up as an ally, as an upstander, and say, we're not going to stand for it. We're going to have you we're going to be in your corner. So.
Let me just add to that, because I think that's a really good point. We can talk about the law, we can talk about criminal behavior, we can talk about enforcing this, but we really need you to stand up as well. These are incidents, as you just heard, and this is language, and it may be protected speech, but it still is obscene speech, and it's wrong speech, and you've heard it in the soccer fields. You heard it sometimes in social life, and sometimes we didn't speak up. And that's our job, is to speak up when you hear that. None of this kids will be kids. You speak up, and you say that's wrong. That's not what we do here. That's why we take these incidents like the noose up at the facility in Windsor. That's why we take the swastika on the wall in Yukon. We take that seriously, because you let a little of this germ come in, and then it takes over. We're not going to let that happen.
Any other questions on the Hate Crimes Commission? All right, we thank everybody for coming. We really appreciate it.